Box of Dead Camcorders Productions presents. Well, I've certainly teased it for long enough. So here it is. The iMac G4. And the reason why I actually prefer the iMac G3 over one of these. Now, I don't profess to be an all-understanding eye of the collector's community, and especially not the Apple collector community, because I haven't really collected Macintosh equipment on a regular basis in a very long time. At least half a decade. Actually, quite a bit more than that. Probably more like a decade. Wow, time is flying by. Anyway, you know, there are certainly some collectors who will go ape over just about anything that's got an Apple logo on it. But I don't think that these things have collector value even till this day. Because I think people are more after the G3s than they are these G4s. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat right now, I am not the biggest fan of the iMac G4 for a number of different reasons. Number one is it looks kind of weird. This is typical Apple design right here. Way over-engineered for what it needs to be. If I remember right, the reason for this base, which houses pretty much the whole computer, is because they thought that the monitor, if you put the computer in the monitor, this would have been too heavy. Of course, funny enough, when they brought out the G5 that replaced this, they put everything in the monitor anyway. So I don't know. Maybe it's because, I mean, this LCD panel is pretty thick. Like, just eyeballing it right now, probably about half an inch thick. So, we take from that what you may. I think, if I remember right, I haven't seen a G5 in at least 15 years. But if I remember right, they were about an inch thick. Quite a bit more than this. So, again, take from it what you may. But of course, this thing, being as though it doesn't have to house the whole computer, can slide around, it can slide up and down. And the monitor even tilts a little bit. Not very much. You don't get a whole lot of tilt. And it doesn't rotate. But you do at least get some tilt. But really, the design is just, it's Apple. It's way over-engineered for what it needs to do. Ultimately, I really don't think there's a whole lot of difference between this and the G3 iMac that they replaced, other than the fact that it's been engineered to fit in this smaller space. Now, that being said, the iMac G3 logic board is actually pretty small as well, but it's definitely bigger than this. So they did do some re-engineering, and of course most of the engineering work went into the new display, which is an LCD display. But I gotta say, the LCD is one of the weak points on these, because even though they use a digital connection, so you get crisper text, the display panel itself, and particularly the brightness, doesn't seem to really be up to snuff compared to the older iMacs, and the eMac as well. The eMac G4, which was introduced because these things were rather expensive. So in order to kill off the G3 iMac, they introduced the eMac. Let me try and get my hands on one of those eMacs. But again, we're venturing very far into not really worth pursuing territory. Like I mentioned, I think already, I'm not a big fan of these machines, but it's not because of the design. I don't think it looks stupid or anything like that. I just think it looks like typical Apple. But it's the performance. I mean, yes, they have better graphics horsepower. I think it's got a GeForce 4 MX in it. Might be only GeForce 2, but either way, either one of those will be better than what I believe is an ATI Rage 128 they used in the iMac G3. So you got a better video chipset, and you definitely got a better processor in the G4, but everything else just kind of left a whole lot to be desired. Now, I haven't run any hard and fast benchmarks. I may have to do that in a future video. but it's slower enough that I can perceive that it's slower without running the benchmarks. It's not much, but it's enough to be noticeable. So if I'm not a big fan of these machines, why do I have this one? Well, this is an example of one of those things, one of those deals that you just can't pass up. Found this at the thrift store, and I seriously think that they thought this thing was an LCD monitor, because they had it in with the LCD monitors, and it was suspiciously cheap, at $10. Yes, I really did pay $10 for an Apple iMac G4. Are they worth more than that? I don't know. Are they worth anything at all? Again, I don't know. I'm not a seeing eye into the value that these things have in the collector's community. I may go look it up later and probably be quite surprised when I find that they have no value whatsoever. But $10, really, $10, and it's in really good shape too. I mean, there's some scratching. You can see it possibly, and you can definitely see that there's definitely some scratches. It's not perfectly clean. There's definitely some dirt, but for the most part, it's in really good shape. And it does work, I think. I haven't actually gotten too far with it yet. We'll get a little bit further in this video than I've gotten with it before if everything happens to work out. But anyway, one interesting thing, I know that Steve Jobs was not a big fan of cooling fans. So forgive the pun there. He wasn't a big fan of cooling fans, but this one actually does have a fan. I think the iMac also had a fan, but I know that the iMac G3 was just convection cooling. So, and they actually got pretty hot, those iMacs did, but they have a CRT monitor, whereas these don't. This is a thermally controlled fan. I don't remember much about these, other than to say that I don't think they ever really did get that hot. Unless you were pushing them really hard and you had one of the higher performance models, of which this certainly is. I don't know how much better you could get. This is the 15-inch model. I don't know how much better of a 15-inch you could get. I know you could get 17, and I think there was a 20-inch version also, but this is just the 15. But this has a 1 GHz PowerPC G4 CPU, 256 megabytes of memory, and an 80 GB hard drive. The latter two of those were maxed out. That was as high as it ever got for the iMac G4. So I don't know if they've been upgraded at some point, certainly possible, or if this thing was just ordered to be a, balls to the walls machine, but just have the smaller display. Maybe there was a reason to have a 15-inch display over a 17, or something similar. I don't know if this thing has... Where's my focus? Oh dear, I think I lost the camera's focus. Yeah, I think it's gone. And we're back, okay. I don't know if this thing has a DVD-capable drive, a combo drive or a super drive in Apple parlance, but it might. We're going to find out, because my OS X installed DVD is, well, a DVD. You can just see it poking up back there. We go ahead and we try and move this around. I don't know how successful I'm going to be. You can get a look at some of the ports there. There's a Kensington lock. It does actually have a video output, which is interesting, and again, it's a digital video output. 3 USB ports, 2 FireWire 400 ports, 6-pin, so they will provide power. There's the power inputs, there's telephone modem, there's Ethernet, and you have a couple different connections. Line, looks like line inputs, a headphone output, and a proprietary connection that would have gone to optional Apple Pro speakers, and a power switch. So let's try and flip this back around again. So now that you know all about the machine and why I don't like it, I'm sure you want to see it run, right? And I mean, the machine cost me $10, but then they had the nerve to charge me an extra $5 for the keyboard and mouse. Conniving bastards. Anyway, I think that this is the keyboard that would have gone with this particular unit. But this is definitely a newer mouse. This is the so-called Apple Mighty Mouse, I believe. I don't know if they still sell these or not. But it's this would have come with a Pro mouse, and this is a Pro keyboard. And this keyboard is a trooper too. I mean, these things are usually in just absolutely dreadful condition. Scratches all over the place, they barely even work. But this one is actually not too bad. I mean, there's scratches. But look at how reflective that still is. Really in good shape. Really kind of amazing. Like I said, you want to see it run, so let's go ahead and fire it up here. It does work. Would have been nice if they had the Apple Pro speakers, but I didn't see them, so. Or just get the onboard. I think there's supposed to be a power LED. It doesn't really work. Hard drive just powered up, and we get a white screen. And that's pretty much as far as it's going to go, because there is no operating system loaded on it. So now we get to find out whether or not this thing has a DVD drive. We'll hold down the mouse and push the power button. That should eject the CD-ROM drive for us. Assuming it's actually working. Oh, uh-oh. Yeah, it's stuck. I think the tray belt is slipping. That's great. Well, I did manage to get it. I may never get my disc back again after I try this, but while it's booting, hold down on the C key. Should tell it to boot to the CD-ROM. It's definitely trying to read it. We have a DVD drive. Awesome. Cool. So this was a fairly high-end machine, or it's just been massively upgraded. Because most of them, if I remember right, just came with CD burners. Well, this ought to be fun. Now, I'm probably not going to take you through the entire installation of Mac OS X on one of these things, because I'm sure there's a million videos on YouTube of people doing just that. So, but it does work, which I think is insanely badass. Okay, I think I have now figured out why this machine was so cheap. Have a listen. I don't know if you can hear that. But I think we got a bad hard drive on our hands. There's definitely some files on the drive. So I probably shouldn't have taken the erase option. Not that I think it's going to matter ultimately. But it cannot get through setup. So that's already pretty grave in and of itself. Give it a try and see what happens. Now that I've tried to take that erase option, see if anything actually happens. Kind of doubt it. 'Cause I think that disk is screwed. Yeah, I didn't even take the erase. It just turtles all the way down. It'll sit there forever, so I'm going to have to replace this hard drive. Which is going to be fun, because I've never actually taken one of these apart, so that's going to be entertaining. But we can at least do what I wanted to do in the first place, and that was have a look at the system profiler. If it'll actually work. There's the system identifier. 1.25 gigabytes of memory. Okay, this has been upgraded. Because the sticker on the bottom said 256 megs, so yeah, somebody added a 1 gigabyte memory module. This should give us both the hard drive and the optical drive, if the hard drive doesn't just completely stuff the whole thing right up. That's a very accurate date and time. It is an 80 gigabyte drive. There's your information. This is a DVD burner. That's pretty decent. Texas Instruments sound chip. No Bluetooth. No burning device was found. Well, that's very funny considering that's a DVD burner, so. No idea what happened there. Firewire 400. It's got a GeForce 4MX, which isn't too bad. 32 megabytes of video memory. There you can see the upgraded RAM. Shouldn't say anything for PCI or parallel SCSI. Nothing for serial ATA. Don't believe this, we don't have an airport card, which is a shame, because they're actually fairly expensive if you want to go find one. So, I think that's pretty much it. Let's just hit the go back button. You can't even shut it down. And I'll just hit the reboot. Try and eject the tray again. If it will actually work. I wonder what it's doing. I had to actually force the machine off. Let's see if it'll actually eject the tray this time. On its own. Alright, it's getting stuck a little bit, but it tries. Oh, it tries valiantly. That's as far as we are going to get. So, I think that's going to do it for the video. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time.